People have to wonder, where does Sunny Hostin get her opinions?
Yeah.
Like you said, and it's obviously from her husband. She has to tell her what to say on The View, because without it, she's got nothing up there. She's not very bright. But the problem with her is that she went full racist. She injected skin color into a fairly generic behavior seen in all spouses, regardless of skin color. People marry, they listen to each other, they have something in common with them, they share their political views. She just didn't want to upset her husband by saying her husband makes her do everything, and then she'd have to accuse him of being a racist. Because if he told her that this is what white women do, then he's a racist.
A debate on The View quickly evolved into a heated exchange about family history, immigration, and politics, creating one of the program's most talked about moments. During the discussion, Sunny Hostin referenced Tomi Lahren's great-great-grandparents' immigration story in an apparent effort to challenge her position on immigration policy. The exchange immediately shifted the tone of the conversation, transforming what began as a policy debate into a much more personal confrontation.
Wow. I'm a little bit in shock. I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican, half Puerto Rican. I didn't think I was, my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders.
Yeah. So how are you feeling, my friend?
I think it's actually pretty interesting that my husband and I have shared roots.
Rather than appearing unsettled, Tomi Lahren remained composed and responded confidently, turning the conversation back toward the broader political issues under discussion. What initially seemed designed to put her on the defensive instead became a dramatic live television moment that generated widespread reactions from viewers and commentators across social media. The central question quickly became whether the exchange had strengthened either side's argument or simply shifted attention away from the policy discussion itself.
Folks, I have heard a lot of dumb crap come out of blue states, but this one is a real doozy. Get this, as of January 1st, New Jersey teachers will no longer be required to pass a basic literacy test.
The conversation had started with familiar disagreements over immigration, border security, legal immigration, and related political issues. However, the moment Sunny Hostin introduced Lahren's family history, the focus moved away from legislation and toward ancestry, surprising many viewers watching the debate unfold. Hostin appeared confident that the historical reference would reinforce her argument, pointing to the fact that Lahren's Norwegian ancestors reportedly did not initially speak English after arriving in the United States generations ago. Critics of that approach argued the discussion had become more about personal history than public policy.
I started out at One America News with an 80-something-year-old male boss who called me a bimbo pretty freely. That was a different experience. I went to the Blaze and I worked for Glenn Beck, who I had to end up getting in a lawsuit with because he tried to fire me for saying I was pro-choice when I went on The View. So it's been a different experience.
Moments later, Lahren delivered a brief response that many viewers described as the turning point of the exchange, leaving the studio audience noticeably surprised and dramatically changing the direction of the conversation. The discussion then shifted toward a broader question about why Tomi Lahren attracts so much criticism from political opponents. The question appeared intended to challenge her directly, but Lahren remained composed and redirected the conversation toward her views on immigration, personal responsibility, and opportunity. Acknowledging that her ancestors arrived from Europe during the 19th century without speaking English, she argued that they entered the country legally, followed the laws of the time, and built their lives through hard work and perseverance.
That immigrants come over here and they don't know anything and they're dragging us down because we all come from immigrants, including you, Tomi Lahren.
She talks about low skills. What exactly are her skills?
Her second great-grandmother had been here for 10 years, yet spoke no English. Oh my gosh. 1930 census says Tommy's 3 times great-grandmother had been here for 41 years and still spoke German. She didn't speak English either. She doesn't even know her own history. She certainly doesn't know this country.
Supporters of Lahren viewed that response as a successful reframing of the debate, arguing that the focus had moved away from ancestry and back toward competing perspectives on immigration policy. Critics, meanwhile, continued challenging her broader political positions. Almost immediately after the exchange aired, social media erupted with reactions, featuring memes, political commentary, flag emojis, and thousands of users debating immigration history and modern border policy from every possible angle. The conversation expanded even further when Greg Gutfeld weighed in afterward with his own commentary. Known for combining political criticism with humor, Gutfeld responded by mocking the strategy of using family ancestry as a political argument.
What is it about you that bothers him so much?
Well, it's not just me, it's anybody who advocates for merit-based immigration or has an issue with open borders. And again, just like you said, they don't seem to understand that we on the right believe in immigration. We understand that we are a nation of immigrants, and I am proud of my heritage. However, I do believe that the immigration crisis of today is apples to oranges from what it was in the 1800s when immigrants came to this country legally, were documented, worked for themselves, asked for nothing, and built a life and a family. That has nothing to do with the illegal immigration crisis of today that we must deal with. But they don't want to acknowledge that.
He joked that examining someone's distant relatives can become a risky approach because nearly every American family has its own complicated immigration story. He also pointed out that many immigrant families throughout history arrived without speaking fluent English, suggesting that such circumstances were common rather than unusual in earlier generations. Many commentators argued that the humor resonated because it underscored a broader point about political debates. Once the conversation moves away from public policy and toward the personal histories of participants, the discussion often becomes more emotional and far less productive. For many viewers, what began as a debate over immigration policy increasingly resembled political theater rather than a focused exchange of ideas.
Hostin's obsession with race gets thrown back in her face. Today's video comes to us from Sunny Hostin. Sounds like a town. We're in Sunny Hostin. She was on PBS's Finding Your Roots, a show dedicated to researching celebrity ancestry. For context, Sunny is a staunch supporter of reparations and has made a fortune spewing nonsense about white privilege and racial justice. Well, turns out she's not as oppressed as she claims she is. She's actually the descendant of slave owners from Europe. Here's how she...
As the discussion continued on The View, the atmosphere became noticeably more tense. Observers commented that the conversation appeared increasingly difficult to steer back toward its original topic. While Sunny Hostin attempted to personalize the debate, Tomi Lahren maintained a consistent message centered on legal immigration and opposition to personal attacks. Supporters praised her disciplined approach, while critics continued disagreeing with her broader political positions. Online reaction quickly reflected those same divisions. Some viewers declared Lahren the stronger debater, while others applauded Hostin for confronting her directly during the exchange. Across social media, clips spread rapidly as thousands of users debated the arguments, turning the televised discussion into another highly visible political flashpoint that blended television controversy with the fast-moving dynamics of internet discourse. Many viewers argued that the discussion illustrated how quickly serious political topics can shift away from policy and toward personal exchanges. Immigration remains one of the most complex issues in public debate, yet the conversation increasingly focused on family history rather than competing ideas. Critics suggested that referencing Tomi Lahren's ancestors appeared intended to create a memorable television moment, and while the exchange certainly attracted widespread attention online, the reaction unfolded differently than many observers expected.
Then with DNA, 23andMe, because I cannot believe the detail on your background that they were able to get.
Well, I don't have to. She did all the research for me, so I'm sure my family is very appreciative.
What about Joy saying, though, what are your skills? It's beyond research. It is personal. It is mean.
Well, of course, this is classical Joy Behar, but I would like to ask Joy Behar what her skills are, because perhaps we could swap stories. I know I watch Joy, and she seems like a highly skilled lady, but for her to attack me, that's really interesting. Those in glass houses should not throw...
Commentators noted that the discussion could have explored broader themes surrounding immigration, including the unique experiences of different families and the challenges many newcomers have historically faced after arriving in the United States. Instead, attention centered on a personal exchange that quickly fueled social media debate, producing countless reactions, memes, and sharply divided opinions across multiple platforms. Supporters of Lahren argued that her measured response became one of the defining moments of the segment. Rather than escalating the confrontation, she continued emphasizing her views on legal immigration, hard work, and the American dream. By the time the program reached a commercial break, many viewers believed the tone of the discussion had shifted significantly. More broadly, commentators suggested the exchange reflected a recurring challenge in modern political media. Complex public issues often become overshadowed by emotional moments, making thoughtful policy discussion increasingly difficult to sustain in televised debates. Many commentators observed that immigration is a deeply personal and complex subject involving history, identity, opportunity, and family experiences. Reducing those discussions to dramatic television moments may generate headlines, but critics argue it often creates more division than genuine understanding or meaningful dialogue. After the broadcast, the controversy expanded rapidly across social media. Users from across the political spectrum weighed in, with some praising Sunny Hostin for raising the issue, and others criticizing her decision to reference Tomi Lahren's family history during the debate.
So, Tomi, what led to that bashing on The View?
Well, there is a woman over the weekend who took it upon herself to research my family history in hopes of digging up some kind of a gotcha moment, a gotcha angle to validate illegal immigration and open borders. And what she found was really shocking, guys. She found that my family who came here in the 1800s from Norway and Germany, that they spoke Norwegian and German.
Okay.
And really what she did is prove that my family came here legally, but what she was hoping to do was try to call me a hypocrite for believing in merit-based immigration.
Meanwhile, Lahren continued engaging with the public conversation through interviews and social media posts, with supporters arguing she successfully used the attention to reinforce her political message and public image. Greg Gutfeld also entered the discussion shortly afterward, approaching the controversy through his signature mix of political commentary and humor. He criticized the strategy of using a person's ancestry as a political argument, suggesting that nearly every family has a complicated immigration history. One of his jokes compared the exchange to throwing rocks in a glass house, highlighting what he viewed as the risks of making family history the centerpiece of a political debate. Gutfeld further argued that there was irony in promoting compassion while simultaneously using an opponent's ancestors as part of a televised political attack. His remarks quickly circulated online, generating additional clips, memes, and commentary that extended the debate well beyond the original television segment. Greg Gutfeld summarized the exchange with a pointed observation, arguing that The View was beginning to resemble political theater centered on family history more than a discussion of public policy. Many viewers were left asking how a debate about border security and immigration had shifted into a conversation about relatives who arrived in America generations ago. Commentators suggested the exchange reflected a broader trend in modern political television, where dramatic moments often spread faster than detailed policy discussions. Critics argued that Sunny Hostin's reference to Tomi Lahren's ancestry ultimately gave Lahren an opportunity to redirect attention and reinforce her own arguments rather than weakening them. Some observers also noted that reactions might have been very different had the roles been reversed. According to those commentators, public responses to personal references in political debates often depend on who makes the remarks, rather than on the remarks themselves. They argued this perceived inconsistency has become part of the broader criticism surrounding televised political discussions, where performance can sometimes overshadow substance. Supporters of Lahren believed she handled the situation effectively by remaining composed after her family history became part of the conversation. Meanwhile, Hostin continued receiving support from viewers who agreed with her broader perspective, although others felt the discussion became unnecessarily personal and distracted from the underlying policy issues. Regardless of which side viewers favored, many agreed that the debate shifted away from immigration itself and toward television drama. Until that pattern changes, critics argue, serious political conversations may continue resembling entertainment almost as much as meaningful public debate, leaving audiences discussing memorable moments more often than the policies themselves. By that stage of the discussion, many observers felt the central policy question had largely disappeared. The exchange was no longer simply about Tomi Lahren or Sunny Hostin. Instead, it became another example of how modern political debates often evolve into emotional confrontations rather than detailed conversations about public policy. Complex issues such as immigration can quickly become framed as highly shareable television moments instead of opportunities to examine practical solutions or competing legislative proposals. Critics argue that The View has increasingly become a blend of political debate and viral entertainment, where memorable exchanges frequently receive more attention than the substance of the discussion itself. As the segment unfolded, viewers watched personal history, prepared political arguments, and emotional reactions compete for attention, creating a conversation that many believed was shaped as much by social media as by policy. The broader takeaway, according to many commentators, is that once personal history becomes part of a political argument, productive dialogue becomes increasingly difficult. One side may emphasize personal experiences or emotional appeals, while the other relies on structured policy arguments, but meaningful understanding often becomes secondary. Instead, public attention shifts toward short video clips, online reactions, memes, and viral moments that dominate social media long after the original discussion has ended. By the conclusion of the exchange, many viewers felt the conversation had become more about entertainment than immigration reform itself. Rather than focusing on potential solutions, attention centered on memorable one-liners, dramatic reactions, and which participant appeared to gain the upper hand. Critics argue this has become a familiar formula across modern political talk shows, where conflict generates engagement, and viral moments often overshadow thoughtful discussion. In the end, supporters of both sides claimed victory, while the larger policy debate remained largely unresolved and secondary to the spectacle unfolding on television and online.